this place?
It looks like we're in a palace.
What the hell is going on?
Who are these people?
No idea. But if they're attacking us, our only choice is fighting back. Hey, look over there! Can you get us out of here?
That's right, folks. Welcome back to the channel. This is the KZXcellent Livestream review. Yeah, that's right. We have no good titles or good logos here on the show. I'm KZ, and we're going to be talking about Persona 5 Tactica, another game that I played through on stream, another game that released on the exact same day as Mario RPG's remake, and another spin-off in the Persona 5 sub-series of Persona, which is a sub-series of Shin Megami Tensei. That's a lot. As you know, I do off-the-cuff reviews here on the channel. You should check out the Mario RPG one, because this is the exact same format as that one. The only difference here is that I will also be ranking every game I review going forward to let you know, one, what I think is better, and kind of what type of ranking would I put them in tier-wise. I will not be doing scores of 1 to 10, because people get a little bit weird about it. And also, from a video standpoint, ranking them is way more interesting. It will have wonderful nuance in the fact that things will be above other things. Anyway, let's get started with Persona 5 Tactica. So, my history of the Persona series is pretty simple. I've been playing these games in some form for about 15 years now. I got in through Persona 4, seeing coverage of that. Played through all of that, went through the rest of the games, extended myself to numerous games in the Megaten franchise, the Shin Megami Tensei games. And overall, I enjoyed the original Persona 5. I thought it was good the whole way, but not really shooting up to a real high point for me, until Royal came out and gave us the third semester, which I thought was some of the best Persona content I had ever played. Really thoroughly enjoyed what they did with that, from music to gameplay to the new story stuff. And I was excited to jump into this, I guess, because I missed out on Strikers, which I will be rectifying in the near future. And also, I didn't play Persona Q2. because they decided not to dub it, despite it being Persona 5, and it was on the 3DS, which means it was dead on arrival. But this wasn't dead on arrival, at least in my heart, because it was available for free via Game Pass. So we jumped into it to see how it was, take it through its paces, and let's discuss it. First up, let's dig into the story, as it is the most important part of video games. Whenever someone is playing a game and then they talk about, yeah, you know, it's the story is whatever, I'm not here for that. And those people I immediately shut out of my mind. Narrative is important, whether it's a fighting game or an RPG. I need something to motivate me to think about things in more detail, to get me invested. How did this do? So, the basic premise of the game starting up is that taking place after the events of Persona 5 Royal, Joker's getting ready to soon leave town, move out, and everything, but unfortunately they get whisked away to a new special world. A series of kingdoms, not palaces, but basically function the same in that you're going to battle through various enemies, some enemy shadows, they're called legionnaires in this, to take down a kingdom's ruler alongside two additional new characters, being Erina, who is this big revolutionary leader, holds the big flag, and then Toshiro, a normal dude, but has some important connections to everything that is currently happening in the story of the game. They're the two primary, story characters. I think Erina overall is fairly weak, but it's understandable. Toshiro is fairly strong character-wise, though, and I think them together really fill out this game's story and got me to care about it and really enjoy it as you go through various different kingdoms, some of them being generic big kingdom with a wedding, more Edo, Japan-looking area, and some other stuff like that. There are 4 kingdoms in total. The first 2 feel the most fleshed out they feel like a palace you would do in Persona 5 or a dungeon in, say, Persona 4. And then the last 2, the third one's the more lore-focused story one that changes how you're thinking about the things going on. And the fourth one is more of a, we're giving you a lot of fights, we're giving you some boss refights, and we're gonna get you out of here, and it's the climax time. Overall, from a pacing perspective, I think it's pretty good. I don't have too many issues besides the fact that when you defeat a main boss, you have to, one, lock yourself into the scenario of beating the main boss, which is going to be like a 30 to 40 minute commitment, and then like another 90 minutes of, we made it out of there. Let's move on to the next kingdom. Let's see what that kingdom's problem is. Let's do a few battles, and then they give you your hub area back, which is almost always just going to be another Cafe LeBlanc. Overall, I feel like they could have maybe given you this opportunity to stay in the previous hub after you beat it before you choose to move on. I think that fits a bit better than a save prompt that doesn't allow you to have freedom the next time you play, but that's mostly a complaint I have as a streamer that is always looking for proper, good stopping places for each play session, but I feel like that could have been a little bit better. But overall, I think the story is handled pretty well with the whole revolution theme it has going on. I think all of the Persona 5 characters act naturally. The Flanderization arc that these type of Persona spin-offs had a few years ago has no longer been a thing, given the amount of people who shoot for both Persona Q2 and Persona 5 Strikers as great games. I am willing to believe that, given the evidence here of every character acting so naturally. So if you say got burned by how characters acted in Persona 4 Arena, either of its versions or the original Persona Q, you do not have to worry about that kind of thing here. This is something that stands on its own, and I wouldn't be shocked if someone didn't really care about Persona and gave this a try because they like strategy RPGs, and then went, maybe I want to go back and check out those other games, and they'll find the similar characters they had here. So I think they really succeeded. I also really like Toshiro as a character and the stuff they did for him here. They just, I think, did a very good job on the story. I don't think it's like peak fiction, but I do believe that they like delivered something solid where I enjoyed it the whole way through. And I also like how they continued to link back the various crises that were happening in these kingdoms and giving some of the Phantom Thieves a reason to care, because they could draw connections based on their own experiences from Persona 5. Whether it's Haru seeing seeing another situation that involves evil rich people and constantly trying to satisfy your father, or various hang-ups that like Futaba has that connect back both from Tactica to the things that she dealt with in the original P5. I think they did a really good job with a lot of that stuff. And also, this game only exists because of the impact narratively that was caused by what we do toward the end of Persona 5, and I think, in its way, this spin-off sequel does a really good job of that. So, very satisfied with the story. Let's talk a little bit about that gameplay. Gameplay for this is tactics, so, there's a bunch of grids and squares, but it also has that freedom of movement you would see in something like an XCOM, or more accurately, a Mario plus Rabbids, since a couple of those games have been out by then. So long as you're not Rabbid-phobic, you can dive into those. It takes that type of style, but then adapts it to the Shin Megami Tensei or Persona-style gameplay of you're using those spells, you're essentially hitting weaknesses, getting crits, getting additional turns for getting those critical hits. You now have a system of all-out attacks where after you knock an enemy down with a critical hit, you can then surround them with all three characters, creating some variation or shape of a triangle, and everything within that triangle will be hit by the all-out attack. This makes you really prioritize positioning, and this is also a game where your movement is not a all-in commitment. You only commit to the position you're standing in once you've done an attack. So say you do the all-out attack, you get two other people moving around the map to make the biggest triangle you can for a big attack. The only person that's committing is going to be the character that initiates that all-out attack, the person who initially got that once more critical, the person who knocked down the enemy initially. That's really great, because you also have stuff like getting up to a higher point and knocking an enemy down to the ground floor, and if you position a character near where they would land, while that enemy is falling after getting knocked off, you're going to pull out some guns and start shooting them in the air, juggling them, as you get a free crit off of it. And that person who's doing that follow-up from the ground doesn't lose their turn. All they did was move in the right spot. It's stuff like this that really makes you think about the strategy of certain maps. There's also quests in the game, and some of them have a specific challenge of defeat every enemy in one turn. And those are some of the most satisfying quests in the game, as they give you maps where you really have to think about the strategy because you only have one turn to do it. Whether it's, how can I get a character across the entire map, or how can I line up 20 enemies in the world's biggest triangle? And it's really satisfying to pull those things off. Overall, I think the gameplay's good. It's a bit casual in various different ways. You don't have to worry about the XCOM 20% accuracy when you're pulling a gun against a dude's head at point blank. Like, you don't have to worry about any of that shit. And just overall, I think the gameplay's good. I enjoyed my time with it. I enjoyed the story quite a bit. So to give you my final thoughts on Persona 5 Tactica, I would say it's good. You should play it. You can get it for a bargain, too, if you somehow have an Xbox, or if it's on PC Game Pass. I did not check. It's available on Game Pass, so you can just, you know, pay that fee and download it and play through it. It's not too long either. Take you about 15 to 20 hours, depending on your speed. I played on normal, had a pretty good time with it. And it's pretty solid. I also like the general art style for it quite a bit. I think it looks better than the Persona, I would say the Persona Q super chibi-fied style. This is kind of shooting for some, like, more panty and stocking style if you've seen that anime, for instance. And I think it works for it. I would like to see more games from Atlus in this style specifically. Now, this would normally be where we're done. We're all good. But unfortunately, they put out DLC on the exact same day the game came out. So I'd like to give my thoughts on it. But it's going to be a little bit faster, just because, one, it's short, but I did want to highlight it because we did play it. So, Persona 5 Tactica has the DLC Repaint Your Heart. Now, there's naturally going to be some concerns about Day 1 DLC. Did they slice this out of the main game? And the answer is, while it absolutely was finished at the same time, it was not cut out of the main game. There's not going to be a moment where you're like, this would have taken place in Chapter 2 when like, Ryuji got knocked off the train. This did not happen. This is a unique episode that takes place well before Tactica would take place. It's supposed to mainly star you as Joker, and then you have Akechi and Kasumi, because that's like the main three for a lot of the third semester stuff in Persona 5 Royal. You get whisked away into another world after you look at some weird graffiti on a wall. This takes place during the casino dungeon from Persona 5, continuity-wise. And also the characters kind of don't really remember that any of this happens at the end. But, you know, they have to do that because Kasumi and Akechi had not met at this point in the story, and it would cause a continuity error, you know, the usual, it's whatever. But it does have an impact on Tactica's main story, so it does end up having an effect and happening, and is probably one of those small dominoes that pushes some of the movers and shakers of that game's story to push forward, since this does take place before it. Overall, the story is about trying to get out of this world, but also trying to save this character, Guernica, I believe her name is, from some problems that are happening. It focuses on this graffiti artist, it focuses on less privileged people and stuff, whereas Tactica is about this revolution and everything. This is about how, like, trying to like defeat a bad guy and what happens to some people that slip through the cracks and stuff. Overall, I think the story is pretty good. There's an evil bird in it. There's cool graffiti everywhere. It has its own unique style, and the gameplay is somewhat different from base Tactica. In particular, the gameplay of Repaint Your Heart has all the mechanics that you had from the normal game, with the exception of fusion. Fusion's entirely cut, so you don't have a system of fusing away personas to get sub-personas to equip for stat bonuses, a thing I forgot to mention in the first part of this review. These aren't scripted, you're just getting genuine my thoughts, and whatever falls through the cracks falls through the cracks. I almost said falls through the cacks. Whew! Should I recut this? Should I re-record this? I should, but I won't. You basically pick up really high-leveled sub-personas as you play. And they scale up. This is a 4-hour DLC, but you still end up with, like, level 80 sub-personas equipped to you by the end. It definitely isn't too difficult, especially the final boss that really is boneless and doesn't have much going on, because it's a DLC, I guess. A lot of reused assets in some ways that come off a bit tacky for your final encounter. But it does make you think about the game a bit more, because whenever you deal a hit in this game, it leaves behind some paint for the DLC specifically, because it's Repaint Your Heart. It has like that Splatoon-esque turf war element to it, where hitting enemies leaves behind paint, hitting big paint cans cause explosions, and when you hit things with physical attacks, it launches them forward. So it becomes this thing of trying to attack enemies when they're in your turf, because one, if someone's standing on like your specific paint, regardless if they're in cover or not, they will get hit by a critical hit, which is really nice, and it changes how you think about certain enemies, how you're going to do specific positioning, especially when enemies that were normally not too bad in the base game, like a big heavy enemy that upon being hit automatically reacts by jumping forward toward the direction of your character. That becomes more serious, because normally you'll like hit an enemy in the DLC, it'll put paint below them, and then you can hit them for a free crit. Here, you'll try to do that with a big guy, and then they'll jump away from the part that you painted to land on you, dealing damage to you and surrounding himself in paint, their own paint, which then means that you can't do the thing that you were specifically gunning for. It makes you have to think about the encounters in a different way, so I'd say its gameplay in that way is a bit stronger than the base games. But that being said, it adds its own flavor to it, and I really enjoyed it. It's not one of those cases where I'm like, this is just better than the base game, so you should only play this. It's not one of those, like, weird reductive stances, but more of a thing of, this does some unique stuff from the other game, and it makes me, like, really appreciate it. So it leads to, like, two pretty cool experiences on their own. They kind of feed into each other, or at the very least, this one feeds into the base game in some nice ways. Also, I believe you unlock the additional party members for the main game, which is cool, but you don't necessarily really need them, and they also won't do anything in the narrative through that. But it's always nice to have extra things. Also, they have some fun optional fights you can do. I didn't really have much interest, but they have some additional ones that you can do. Overall, I'm feeling pretty good overall about Persona 5 Tactica. Its DLC was good, and its main game was good. I got it for a good bargain, and it is solid. It is not breaking the doors down, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good, and if you have the time, maybe you have access to Game Pass, or you have more expendable income than me, I would definitely consider picking this up if you liked either this review or my streams of it. But now we have to move on to the final phase of this review. It is time to introduce my ranking system. This is how I'm going to decide the quality of games beyond the words that I say, because that's the most important part. The segment where I like score it or give it a ranking or do something like that. We're going to be doing a tier list, a customized tier list thing here, where I'll rank all the games I review against each other in a way. We put them into 5 tiers or 5 categories. I'm going to explain them in a second, and we're going to place them in. Things that are higher are obviously better. Things that are the closest to the letter, so left to right, are better. So if you see something that's to the left of another game in the same tier, that means that one on the left is better, in my opinion. And we're going to continue to grow this out as I do more reviews. So, here's how each tier works. D rank is for disappointments. It's for games that are rough, that aren't really recommendable, unless you, like, really know the person. I guess, like, really, really know them. Either the gameplay, the story, or both really don't come together, and overall, I would say it's closer to a bad game than a good game. C rank is for some of the mid stuff, like, it's mid, but I like her. It's a game that you can't fully say it's, like, good to great, but has some, like, solid stuff in it, but way too many flaws are, like, holding it back. You can play a mid game from time to time and come out even feeling like, it's alright, you know, that kind of general feeling. B rank is for stuff that's like, oh, that's pretty good. You know, I enjoyed it. It's not, like, shooting up to highly super recommendable, but, you know, like, the occasional good licensed game, a Ubisoft game, or, like, games that, like, had a lot of potential but squandered some of it, but hit on a few certain areas can kind of fit this type of tier. Then we have A rank, which I would say is great. These are great games that are recommendable to people. They could really achieve, like, true greatness, but have a couple of things that are, like, holding them back, whether it's technical or something else. It's one of those times where you come out of a game feeling pretty high on it. It's something that could appear in your favorite games of the year, but it's not one of those special experiences. Speaking of, that's what S is all about. Special experiences. Games that you find to be peak fiction, that you find them to be your 10 out of 10s. You find them to be games that you'll recommend to anyone. You consider them must-plays. Obviously, it's not something about saying whether a game is perfect or not, because every video essay that goes, is it perfect though, makes me want to tear my hair out. But it's the type of thing where I go, this is a game that I think is awesome, and anything that I'd have to complain about is like stupid nitpick stuff, and doesn't fully detract from the experience, and is something that I want more people to play. So, now that I've explained those tiers, here's what we're looking like in terms of rankings. From Episode 1, Super Mario RPG Remake gets the S rank, naturally. We're going to put that right there at the top. It is the best video game I've ever reviewed. Coming in second place would be the focus of this episode, and I'm going to be giving Persona 5 Tactica the official ranking of a B. Now, my feelings on it is that it fits everything that I described what B rank is, where it's good. There's nothing here that really pushes it toward the next level for me. Its story doesn't hit that really big high I'm looking for, despite some cool stuff in it. The gameplay is good enough. I feel like I played better tactical games, but I enjoyed my time with it. But various other things bring it down. Like, I don't think some of the writing for Arena is particularly strong in some of the early portions of the game. Minor pacing stuff going on, and generally it's not gameplay that I'm like, that is infectious to me. Though some parts are, like the fusion and general gameplay mechanics of Tactica, but overall it doesn't hit me the way a mainline Mega 10 game does, or a mainline Persona game does. But it's still good. It's definitely something I recommend, especially to fans of Persona. But I think it fits pretty well and very comfortably in B tier. And with that, we now have a ranking of the greatest video games of all time. The number 1 is Super Mario RPG, the Switch remake. And the second best game ever made is a Persona 5 spin-off. But don't worry, this will evolve over time, and I'm going to try my best to review other games that I have streamed, especially ones that happened in the past. In fact, our next review will be something that I played months prior to me starting to do this stuff. So please look out for that, and that's what we are looking at here. So, thank you so much for watching this review of Persona 5 Tactica. I'm continuing to try and do some new stuff here on the channel. I hope people still like this review style, and I'll try to get another one out as soon as I can. This has been KZ, and I will see you guys next time.
Somewhere deep inside, I know you realize things can't go on like this. So, will you take a stand beside us?
Yeah, let's show them what we got.